PFL Super Fights Battle of the Giants, Francis Ngannou made his return to MMA in the most Francis Ngannou way possible. The lineal heavyweight champ starched the PFL 2023 season champ Renan Ferreira in just 3 minutes and 30 seconds. But what now? The 38-year-old former UFC champion surprised everyone with an early takedown. The Brazilian threw up a triangle, but Ngannou escaped and the ground and pound began. And no one throws ground and pound like the new champ. Ngannou came into the inaugural heavyweight super fight with a myriad of asterisks next to his name. It was his first MMA fight in 1,000 days. It was 7 months after his brutal knockout loss to Anthony Joshua in boxing, and even more impactful than either of those, it had been less than 6 months since the passing of his 15-month-old son, Kobe. That was the real loss Ngannou had to overcome to get a belt back around his waist. Unfortunately, the win doesn't take my challenge away. My challenge is still there. This fight for me was always a way to find out if I can still fight, if I still have it, if I can deal with this, said Ngannou after the win. We got through. I think it might take some time to process things. What's next for Ngannou really is impossible to say. At 38, he still has a few good years of heavyweight fighting ahead of him. He could go back to boxing, where there are several big-name fights he could take, but after being vaporized by Anthony Joshua, who himself was just laid out by Daniel Dubois, Ngannou is a long way down the list for a boxing title fight. If he stays in MMA, which is what we all want, there are plenty of contenders in the PFL. In particular, there's the 2022 champion Ante Delija, who weighed in on the night in case anything happened to either fighter. But that's not the fight the fans or the sport really need. The real fight the world wants is Ngannou versus the UFC's heavyweight champion, Jon Jones. Bones won the belt Ngannou vacated, and with Ngannou's absence from the sport for almost 3 years, many think Bones is the new lineal champ. What an amazing job Francis did tonight. Displayed a complete MMA game, wrote Jones on Twitter after the fight. Great kicks, great takedowns. It feels good to see him shine. Wow, congratulations, champ. I see you. Jones might see Ngannou, but Jones has to get past the UFC heavyweight GOAT, Stipe Miocic, this November. Miocic has already gone 1-1 with Ngannou and wouldn't mind a shot at revenge himself. If it were up to the PFL partner Jake Paul, Ngannou versus Jones is the bigger fight to make regardless. But there's another man who will have a bigger say. And that's Dana White. The UFC CEO has never been a fan of cross-promotions, and with good reason. Why would we do cross-promotions? Asked White in 2023. If somebody's that good that's in one of these other organizations, they're gonna end up here anyway. For now, Ngannou is gonna rest and weigh up his options. The king without a crown is once again covered in gold, so it will be his decision to make. In the other PFL Battle of the Giants, Cris Cyborg emerged victorious after the toughest fight of her career. The two-time PFL season champion Larissa Pacheco left her in bits, but it was the MMA legend who walked away with the unanimous decision and another belt. The two best female featherweights in the world went to war in a blood-soaked battle for supremacy. Aside from a tight guillotine from Pacheco in the second, the two fighters blasted each other on the feet for 5 rounds, painting each other red until all 3 judges pronounced Cyborg the victor. At the age of 39, there can't be too much time left in professional fighting for Cyborg. This, she knows, and she has plans. I want to complete 20 years in my career. This year is 19, and I want to go to my next chapter of my life and have a kid, said the new champ. Next plan, I'd like to defend my title as soon as possible. Defending a title will be difficult though. Pacheco was the last woman to hold the PFL featherweight belt, but that division was scrapped after she won it in 2023. There's just not enough quality featherweights in the organization. In Bellator, where Cyborg also holds the title, she has already cleaned out the division with 5 consecutive defenses. So, like Ngannou, she might have to look to her old promotion, the UFC, for a super fight. While the UFC also scrapped its women's featherweight division, which they basically made for Cyborg, they do have Kayla Harrison. The two-time Olympic judo gold medalist was the two-time PFL lightweight champion, and she's now competing below feather at bantamweight. A featherweight bout between Harrison and Cyborg was the fight to make for years, and it looks like nothing has changed. Also on the Saudi Arabia card, the super champion Johnny Eblen survived a fifth-round fight back from Fabian Edwards for his third defense of the Bellator middleweight title. Over in the UFC in Las Vegas, Anthony Hernandez spent every minute of his first main event grinding away at the flashy striker Michel Pereira before getting the fifth-round TKO. Hernandez believed his cardio and pressure would get the job done, and he was right. He refused to let Pereira get into any rhythm, and after 22 minutes, he was done. It was a performance reminiscent of a certain someone else in the middleweight division. Dricus du Plessis mixes it very well, and that's why he's champion right now, said Hernandez after the win. He's just a tough and he goes. He looks like he's gassed, and he keeps pushing. I'd love to fight him. Du Plessis is the man with the belt, but the middleweight division is stacked with elite contenders, and Hernandez hasn't quite cracked the top 10. If he wants to break in, the number 7 ranked middleweight and former title contender Jared Cannonier recently lost to a pressure fighter in Caio Borralho. Cannonier could be a fight to see who stays in title contention. Fight Night 245 was the most decision-heavy card of 2024. With that in mind, Hernandez was awarded the only performance bonus for just the second stoppage of the card. Darren Elkins and Daniel Pineda won Fight of the Night. In other MMA news, former UFC star Paige VanZant says she's probably done with MMA. I don't ever like to say I'm closing the door 100%, but I broke my arm 5 times in my life and 4 times in basically 2 years of competing, said VanZant, which is probably fair enough. After taking the UFC by storm as a 20-year-old in 2014, VanZant's career trajectory didn't pan out as many had hoped. Her last MMA bout was in 2020, when 12-gauge lost to Amanda Ribas by armbar. The now 30-year-old then tried her hand at professional wrestling and bare-knuckle boxing before settling on power slap. And to the one championship, or maybe not, the male Paige VanZant, Sage Northcutt, has been released from the promotion. In 2019, Super Sage left the UFC to join ONE, but in his first bout with his new promotion, he suffered a brutal 29-second KO to Cosmo Alessandre that caused multiple facial fractures and a 4-year layoff. He finally returned in May of 2023 to score a 39-second heel hook finish over Ahmed Mujtaba, which led to a scheduled bout with MMA legend Shinya Aoki. However, ONE called the fight with Aoki off, with what Northcutt described as a completely inaccurate portrayal of the situation. It's been more than 8 months now, and the American has finally been granted his release.
Thanks for watching, and remember, if you want more fight sports in your life, just hit the subscribe button.